What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again for another video. I tried making this video twice already. It did not go through. We're trying to make it a third time here. I know it's been a while since I posted. It's been about 5 days, which would have been out sooner, but I really wanted to get it done now because, well, I'm starting college on Monday, so that's also a pretty big factor here of why I'm trying to get this done. Hopefully I won't need to redo this. So we're going to be doing a redraft today. We did the 1999 redraft. And now we're going to be doing the 2000 redraft. Why? Because there's no players left from the 2000 draft, nor the 2001 or 2002. So I really want to get all of those done at some point by the end of this year. With college starting, it's going to be slower, so we'll see how that goes. And of course, the BFRs, once the season starts, will continue. It should be an interesting year with Connor Bedard coming in. So, first overall in this year's draft, I did the same thing I did last time. We have all of the players who went originally in this spot. And we also have the spots where I'm going to redraft players. So the reason I'm wearing a Rangers jersey is because the Rangers kind of got lucky with a late round pick in this draft that I think should go first overall. And we'll get to that. So first overall, the New York Islanders chose a goaltender. Not the same goaltender I'm talking about here. This is my Panarin Rangers jersey. Of course, who would I get on the back besides Panarin? Because he was a Blackhawk, one of the best Blackhawks in that time. And of course, he got traded. So, Rick DiPietro goes first overall to the Islanders in the year 2000, when they already had Roberto Luongo in the system, and then they traded Luongo because they had DiPietro. Yeah, that kind of sums it up. First overall, no question, the Hall of Famer, Henrik Lundqvist. And like the previous BFR, I'm not going to write where they were. I'm just going to say where they were. They were originally drafted 205th overall. So Lundqvist, a 7th round draft pick there, 205th overall, absolute steal for the Rangers, and definitely a goalie that would still go to New York, but this time Lundqvist would be going to the Islanders instead of the Rangers. Going second overall in the original draft was the Atlanta Thrashers with the Winnipeg Jets logo. Danny Heatley. Say what you want about Heatley. Heatley at 2 was an excellent pick. No one saw his downfall coming. And he was an excellent player for what he brought. Going second overall, I chose the guy that went third overall, and that is Marian Gaborik. Marian Gaborik, who went third overall to the Minnesota Wild, goes second overall to the Atlanta Thrashers. Gaborik, one of my favorite players in the league when he played, Slovakian-born, pretty good player. Was kind of the face of the franchise for the Minnesota Wild when he was in the league, when they first came into the league. Along with Mikko Koivu was in there. They didn't really have a goal. Manny Fernandez was kind of their goaltender. Dwayne Rollison and Manny Fernandez in that 0-3 run. Very impressive there. But yeah, Marian Gaborik going second overall. I'm good with that pick. Not a lot of Hall of Famers in this draft. I mean, it's much better than the 99 draft. The 99 draft, and by Hall of Famers I mean there's one Hall of Famer, but the 1999 draft is one of the worst drafts in the league history. This draft isn't fantastic. It's not loaded. It's not the 03 draft, but it's nowhere near as bad as the 99 draft, where first-round picks should have probably stopped around pick 9 or 10. Picks here stop around, first-round picks I'd say stop here around pick 15, 16, 17-ish area. Now going third overall, I'm gonna say it. The one who went number 2 is going 3 here. Danny Heatley, who originally went second overall to the Atlanta Thrashers. He and Gaborik switched spots. Did I spell Heatley right? No, I forgot the E. Danny Heatley. Yeah, can't even read that. But, you know what? That was so bad that I'm actually going to erase Heatley, and I'm just going to erase this entire name and rewrite it because that was really bad. So, Danny Heatley goes third overall to the Minnesota Wild. He eventually would end up in Minnesota. Much later in his career after his brightest days were over. But Heatley is someone I want to talk about. No one saw that, and people joke about Danny Heatley. People forget how excellent and beyond imaginable of a player he was. In the dead puck era, he was lighting it up with Ilya Kovalchuk with Atlanta. Unfortunately, Atlanta had nothing else. But that was the bright spot. Then the car crash happens. He needs to get out of Atlanta because he's haunted by memories. Yeah, that's fine. Goes to Ottawa. 50 goals in 06. 50 goals in 07, back-to-back 50-goal seasons. The sky is the limit, 100-plus point seasons. And then he starts to drop off as Ottawa starts to get worse. 40 goals the next year, I believe, and then 39, and then another 39 when his first year in San Jose. People forget he basically had 5 40-goal seasons, and 2 of those were 50-goal seasons that started it off. Heatley was phenomenal. His downfall after that 2009-2010 season, really after the 2010-11, that's when it started to drop off. That was something no one saw coming. Should not have happened. Why it happened, who knows? It just happened, and there's nothing we can do to change the past. But Heatley is a muchly overhated and underrated player for people that are growing up now who don't remember who he was. I was around for his bad years, remember? Now this is coming from me. Now going 4th overall, we go a little off the board. I'll put an asterisk next to picks that were originally first-round picks, so Gabrick and Heatley get him. Going 4th overall is someone that people might argue ahead of Heatley, maybe ahead of Gabrick as well, but I think he's kind of overrated because of how much hype's been brought around him. But Mr. Game 7 himself, Justin Williams. People are debating Hall of Fame for Mr. Williams. 2 Stanley Cups and a Conn Smythe Trophy. I can't agree. He originally went 28th overall to the Philadelphia Flyers. Great pick for them, but not stay in Philly. Originally, Columbus chose Radislav Klesia. I don't know how to say that name. To say the least, he is not in this redraft, and neither is DiPietro. So, those 2 already, no. Williams, good player. Solid player. Long career. He won 3 Stanley Cups. I forgot he was with Carolina. But yeah, it started with Philly, got traded to Carolina. Wins a cup there, goes to LA, wins 2 cups there, wins the Conn Smythe in the second one, goes to Carolina, or goes to Washington, was part of some great teams, goes to back to Carolina, captain there. Great career for Justin Williams. Hall of Fame worthy? No, but very good career. Going 5th overall to Detroit, why that went right after Williams in real time. 29th overall, Nicholas Kronwall. See what I did there with the rhyme? A hard-hitting defenseman, I would take 5th overall in this draft. Detroit, good at their doing well, drafting late as usual. Kronwall, good pick for Detroit. Hard-hitting defenseman, very solid defenseman. Won a Stanley Cup in Detroit in 2008. Was with the Red Wings his entire career. Overall, good career for Kronwall. Originally, Islanders chose Raffi Torres. So instead of having Henrik Lundqvist and Nicholas Kronwall, they got Rick DiPietro and Raffi Torres. Yeah, that's Mike Milbury area for you. So far we have Kronwall was a first-round pick, so he gets an asterisk as well. So far we got 4 guys that were all originally in the first round who went 2 through 5, and then Lundqvist, who was way outside the park. Now, going on to 6th overall, we have someone that's in the exact same spot that they were drafted in. Going 6th overall to Nashville was Scott Hartnell. Going 6th overall to Nashville in this redraft is guess who? Scott Hartnell. I would choose Hartnell here again. Scott Hartnell had more points in his career than Patrick Sharp. I didn't know that until I researched this video. But Hartnell was a pretty solid player. I think pretty underrated for his time. Of course, everyone remembers the hair, but he started with Nashville, really hit his stride in Philadelphia, being a huge part of that 2010 Stanley Cup Final run. Seemed to be like the only flyer. Him and Briere were the only 2 that were scoring in that Stanley Cup Final against Chicago. Then he goes to finish his career in Columbus. He was good there as well. And Hartnell was a very scary man when I was a kid. When I saw his hair in that 2010 final, being a 5-year-old kid, I was terrified. But he had over 700 points in the NHL. Good job, Scott Hartnell. But that's another asterisk. Now, going number 7th overall, we have another one that was chosen in the first round by Pittsburgh. Originally, Boston chose Lars Johnson in this spot. I don't even know who that is, so Boston flubbed not once but twice in this draft. But Brooks Orpik, another defenseman. That's the second defenseman chosen. We've had a goalie, 4 forwards, and 2 defensemen. Brooks Orpik, the defenseman that was chosen 18th overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins, wins a cup in Pittsburgh, wins a cup in Washington. Very veteran defenseman, very solid defenseman. Was paired with Letang for his time in Pittsburgh. Was kind of that 1-2 punch on that Pittsburgh defense after Gonchar would go to Ottawa. Gonchar and Letang was kind of that top 1-2, and then Gonchar left, so but Orpik kind of slid into that spot. He wasn't a very offensive defenseman. He was a good two-way defenseman, put up around 200 points in the NHL, played well over 1,000 games, and was kind of in that Pittsburgh core until he would actually leave for Washington, which is funny because Pittsburgh, Washington, that kind of thing. Moving on, we have one that's finally not in the first round. This guy was chosen 55th overall by the Ottawa Senators, so second round. He was originally Tampa Bay took Nikita Alexeyev. 10 Russians were drafted in this draft, at least 10 that sound like Russian names. I didn't actually Google every single one, but 10 Russian names in this draft. So you can tell what kind of draft this was, and it flopped for most teams. 8 out of the 10 were never full-time NHLers. But Antoine Vermette, however, going 8th overall, was Stanley Cup champion with Chicago in 2015 when he was rented out at the deadline. Solid everywhere he went. Great two-way forward. Columbus, Chicago, Anaheim, Arizona. I don't think I'm missing any. Ottawa. He was in that 2007 Ottawa team. So Ottawa, they've got pieces of this 2007 Ottawa team here. You got Heatley, you got Vermette, but very, very great. It was a very good two-way forward. Good penalty killer, especially, and he played a very long time as well. Drafted in 2000, he played all the way until I think 2017, 2018, until he eventually retired. I think as a part of the Ducks, and another very solid career. That Son is trying to block it out. Now going 9th overall, we have another first-round pick. This guy went 13th overall to the Montreal Canadiens in place of Brent Cron, who went 9th overall to Calgary, and he would only play one game in the NHL. So Calgary, nice job with your screw up there. Ron Hainsey, the longest streak of seasons without making the playoffs in his career. Ron Hainsey would eventually pay up for that when he won some Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Defenseman, another first-round pick. He was chosen 13th overall by Montreal. Not so much as high as he is because of how skilled he was, or solid defenseman, veteran defenseman by the time he made it to Pittsburgh, about bottom 2 defenseman at that stage in his career. Long-time NHLer, and he played a very long time. Was his longevity, his commitment, even though he was on bad teams, he kept going. That's kind of why. Sorry about that, guys. But yes, Ron Hainsey, excellent. Not an amazing defenseman, but good defenseman, good career, good long career, Stanley Cup champion. Moving on to number 10 and 11. Chicago had back-to-back picks here from the mess that was the 1999 draft and the trading of their top pick for the Canucks and eventually get to draft one of the Sedins. But they chose 2 Russians because this was a stage where they loved choosing Russians. Mikhail Yakubov, Pavel Vorbiev. Neither of those guys played more than 53 games, I think. One of them played 53, one of them played 57 in the NHL. So, Chicago, congratulations. You win screw-ups of the draft. At least DiPietro played a while for the Islanders before being bought out, and Torres was an NHLer for a while. So, Chicago, you get 2 prizes. You get picked number 118th overall, defenseman Lubomir Wisnowski. Didn't spend as long as in the NHL as I expected, but solid defenseman. He was drafted 118th overall by the LA Kings, and then they'd also get a goaltender here, one of the Russians in this draft that was picked outside the first round but was actually good. Ilya Bryzgalov. Yes, Briz would come to Chicago. He could have been the goaltender here. And he was taken 44th overall by the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. So that's 2 picks outside the first round. Wisnowski and Bryzgalov would solidify a back end that desperately needed help. You had Jocelyn Thibault with the Hawks at this stage, who was a good goaltender. Craig Anderson was in the making at this point. And Bryzgalov could have been another good goaltender to add into your depth there. Wisnowski, good defenseman, could have solidified a back end that really needed help at this stage. I mean, it's dead puck era, but anything would have helped. A good offensive defenseman, Wisniewski. And, so Chicago makes their team better by drafting those two instead of getting Vorobyev and Yakubov. Now, going 12th overall, originally to the Colorado Avalanche at 159th as a defenseman, Alexei Smirnov was taken by the Ducks. Here, John Michael Lyles, who I honestly forgot existed, but I had a ton of his hockey cards. The hyphen goes there. Oh, whoops. Well, John Michael Lyles spent his entire career with the Avalanche, I believe, and was a very solid defenseman. Not much to say here. Good defenseman, was kind of before my time. I don't remember a lot about him. He's not like Lundqvist or Gabrick or Heatley or Williams or Cronwall or Hartnell, Orpik, Vermette, Hainsey. Wisniewski's kind of like, because I don't remember much of him either. Brizgalov, Lyles is just kind of was a Colorado defenseman who came in near the end of when they were a very respectable team in the NHL. That era of Sakic and Forsberg and Waugh. They'd be around. Well, Waugh would retire in 03. Sakic wouldn't retire until 09, but Lyles would be there during some of Colorado's dark era, some dark stages, but also when they would also make the playoffs and randomly in like 2010. I don't know. Now this one might be a bit off the board, but going 95th overall, the second pick by the Rangers in this draft. That's another reason I'm wearing the Rangers jersey. I believe he finished his career there as well, going 13th overall instead of Ron Hainsey to Montreal. Dominic Moore. Masterton winner because of some unfortunate events that happened in his life. But Dominic Moore, journeyman guy, very solid bottom six forward. He was always seemed to be a deadline acquisition. Would always move around the league and made teams wanted him. That's why they kept trading for him. So very solid depth forward, two-way forward, and had some offense there, but defense was, I'd say, the bigger part of his game. I think most people remember Dominic Moore for giving Montreal the win against Washington in that 2010 when they came back from 3-1 down in the first round. Now, 14th overall, the Colorado Avalanche choose Vaclav Nedorost. Who is that? They're choosing instead, this guy went 46th overall to the Calgary Flames. I had no clue he even was drafted by the Calgary Flames, but I remember him. Jarrett Stoll, the center. Stoll would be on the Edmonton team that would go to the final in 06. He would be mostly a third, fourth line center kind of guy, but third line center is where I'd put him. He was on the 2012 and 14 Kings teams. And then I don't really remember what happened to him after that. He kind of just disappeared off the face of the earth. But Jarrett Stoll, he played, drafted in 2000, he played up at least until 2014, probably 2015-16. So, good career for Stoll, and got some Stanley Cup appearances out of it. Now, going 62nd overall to the New Jersey Devils. This guy was a defenseman, and his name was Paul Martin. Paul Martin was an interesting defenseman because the more I look back, the more I hear about how solid he was. But at the time he was playing, I don't think many people saw him as a very solid... I mean, he was a good defenseman. He was on a very good Devils team. But I don't think people saw him as, like, a dominant presence on the back end. I remember him as a pretty good defensive defenseman. And I think Buffalo would much rather have him than Artem Kryukov. I don't know. This is kind of just showing who these teams could have had, names that people would know, rather than random Mojo off the street over here, Joe Blow, Mojo, I don't know. Halfway through now, 16th overall, the Montreal Canadiens had their second pick, and they chose the brother of Marian Hossa, Marcel Hossa. Marcel Hossa is not in this redraft, who is going 16th overall to the now Montreal Canadiens, would be the guy who went 24th overall, and that would be Brad Boyes. Had plenty of his hockey cards as well. Another first-round pick, so he gets to stay with a check mark or asterisk next to there. Brad Boyes did nothing but put up points, and he put up a lot of points. I'm surprised actually how little he played in the NHL. He didn't play 1,000 games at all, but he put up a lot of points. I believe over 500 points in the NHL for the time he was, which was only about 700, 800 games, I think, which I say little time. It's a lot of time, but these days it seems to be getting up there with how many games people are playing. And Boys was someone who maybe it was an injury problem, but I don't really remember seeing him play a lot. But he just put up points. That's what I noticed from the stats. 17th overall now. The Edmonton Oilers took Alexei Mikimov. Instead here, they would take a defenseman who I honestly have no recollection of, but his stats I couldn't put him any lower. Nick Schultz. The name Nick Schultz sounds familiar, and I butchered his name there. Nick Schultz was a very solid defenseman from what I could tell, and he was drafted by the Minnesota Wild, 33rd overall, so we're just a little outside the first round. Second Wild player to make it in this draft, and so far the Rangers and Wild both have two. But yeah, Schultz, solid defenseman. Honestly, no recollection of what he did, but the numbers don't lie. The numbers tell you how good he was. Put up a good few points in the NHL. As a defenseman, you only can put up so many. But solid presence on the back end for a Minnesota team that just wasn't very solid at the time. For when I think I probably remember him, I think 2009, 2010-ish. That'd probably be the time I can remember seeing him in a Minnesota uniform. So Nick Schultz going 17th overall. Now, this guy went 20th overall to the LA Kings. He's going a little higher here, but his career probably should have been a bit longer here. Alexander Frolov, I remember having his hockey card as well. Alexander Frolov put up about 300 and something points in about 500 and something games, which makes me wonder why he wasn't in the NHL longer. He would have been higher if he played a full career in the NHL, and he put up probably I would have been over 1,000 points most likely at that rate. But Alexander Frolov, another Russian, one of the only 3 Russians that I have selected in this draft. So as Vizhinovsky might be Russian, so maybe 4. But Frolov, solid when he was in the NHL, and then after that, I don't really know why he was out of the NHL so quickly. Unless there was something there. Now that I think about it, Frolov might have had something going wrong in his career. I don't remember what it was, but I feel like there might have been some legal things wrong now that I look back in my memory banks here. Now, going 19th overall to the Pittsburgh Penguins instead of Brooks Orpik, who was originally chosen there, is a guy that was chosen 155th overall. Had a sip of tea in Chicago, but he's chosen 155th overall by the Calgary Flames. He's a big part of the Anaheim Ducks team that wins the Stanley Cup in 2007 with their shutdown line. Rob Niedermeyer, Sammy Paulson, and of course Travis Moen. Some big goals in that playoff run, including the winners, and I believe the winner in one of the game 1 or 2 of the Stanley Cup final against Ottawa. He's a tough guy. He could definitely throw some punches at you, and he was also a very solid defensive forward. Points were never his game. Defense, hitting, that was the style the Ducks played, and that's why they would eventually get him. Now, going one spot off of his draft spot, Arizona chooses Chris, Krys, is that Chris? Chris Koldnos. He does not go in this draft either, and instead would be a defenseman. I believe this guy's Russian, Anton Volchenkov. That's a first-round pick right there, and Frolov was also. So, Volchenkov, again, another guy I don't remember a ton about, but I remember he played in Ottawa for a good long time. He was on that 2007 team that went to the final. I remember he was, I think, almost nominated for the second All-Star team in 2007 as well. I remember the hockey guy video saying something about that. But Volchenkov, good. I think he was a top 4 defenseman on that Ottawa team because Char would have already moved on, and then you had Redden, of course. Maybe Volchenkov was paired with Redden. If anyone, let me know down in the comments. Wasn't watching hockey at the time of that when really Redden was in his prime. That's an interesting career there, Wade Redden. But played a long time, but I really don't remember him. Volchenkov, back to him, good defenseman. Good defenseman. Now going 21st overall to the LA Kings. Originally was Alexander Frolov. So Volchenkov moved up one spot from his draft. He was drafted 21st overall by Ottawa. Well, being drafted 21st by Ottawa here would be would be a guy who was chosen 215th overall. That makes him the third farthest from the front of the draft. 215th overall by the Edmonton Oilers, Matthew Lombardi. A guy that bottom six forward, solid presence. A name that rings a lot of bells. Can't put a face to him though. I feel like he definitely played with Calgary. I feel like he played with Phoenix, and I feel like he played with. The names ringing a lot of bells, but I don't remember where they're from. But Matthew Lombardi, I remember looking at his career, solid career, more bottom six forward there. So played a little bit of top 6 minutes in his career, mostly not higher than the second line. But Lombardi, name is familiar. When you name familiarity shows, it could show you how good a player was. Like, everyone knows who Lundqvist is. Everyone knows who. Most people know who Gaborik, Keatley, Williams, Cronwall are, and then Hartnell, Orpik, Vermette. That's when it starts to peter out popularity. But Lombardi, this seems like the right spot to choose him. And then moving on to the next spot would be 22. Would be New Jersey would have the 22nd pick that year. They would choose David Hale. We're going to talk about the voice crack you just heard. David Hale does not go here. Instead, as a guy, I really wish he didn't go here because I hated him when he played. 25th overall was originally taken by the Stars, so he actually moves up, which makes me even angrier. Steve Ott. Steve Ott was an agitator. He was similar to Sean Avery, and he loved to run his mouth. And not afraid to drop the gloves. I remember in Dallas, he played in Buffalo. And he was a guy that really got under my nerves. There's several guys in this draft, and there's another guy in this draft specifically that gets really far under my nerves. And he was picked by the Islanders 5th overall. You're probably wondering where he is. He was in this draft. I was very sad to admit it. But Steve Ott did also have a good few hundred points in his career, so that made it his price tag go up in the draft rankings. And moving on then, as that's the first guy the Stars picked that's in this redraft. Going 23rd overall, the Canucks chose Nathan Smith. I remember the hockey guy saying, bust. Nathan Smith does not go in this draft. Instead, they'd be getting a bottom six center for the Sabres when they were good after the salary cap first came in. Paul Gaustad. Paul Gaustad was a solid two-way forward. I'd say third-line center on a really good team, fourth-line center. Solid defensive numbers on his career, and was drafted by the Sabres 220th overall. Only one guy was drafted later than him in this redraft, I should say. But Paul Gaustad, I remember his career ending by the time he got around to when I was a kid. So didn't spend, I don't think, the longest in the NHL. I believe he went over to play back home. I believe he played was Austrian or something like that. I don't remember. These random facts just kind of pop into my head. I don't know. Now, going 24th overall, the Toronto Maple Leafs chose Brad Boyce, who was already here, so we can't choose him again. So, that's right. Wait, Steve Ott gets an asterisk. This guy was a Vegas Golden Knight, so that shows how long he played. Picked 194th overall by the New Jersey Devils. The Vegas-born Derek Engelland. Derek Engelland, by the time he got to Vegas, was a bottom two defenseman. But I honestly, for a guy that was in the league as long as he was, I don't remember very much of him playing until he got to Vegas. I don't even remember what team he came from, to be honest. I really don't. From the expansion draft. But Derek Engelland, Vegas-born, and he was kind of a leader in that locker room on that 2018 team that went to the final. Retired, I believe, in 2019 or 2020 after one of those two seasons. But picked by the Devils, 194th. That's a pretty good pick for someone who played that long. And, that seems like the right spot for Derek Engelland. Now, picked 97th overall by the Hurricanes, Clutch player, sure. I remember seeing this guy score up some overtime goals. The defenseman, Nicholas Wallin, or as his name was normally pronounced, Wallin, because I believe he was either Polish or something, because in Polish you get the W that sounds like a V, like Wallin. Originally, the Stars chose Steve Ott at 25th overall, that Stars chose Steve Ott 25th overall, but Wallin 97th overall by the Hurricanes. He'd be there for a while, eventually move on to San Jose. And then he was gone. And then I don't really remember what happened to him because I don't remember seeing him very much so after that. That 2010 conference final was probably the last time I saw him. But I didn't even know about his Hurricane stats then. Was with them in 2002 in the final, scored some overtime goals that year. Scored an overtime goal in 2006 against New Jersey. On a breakaway, I believe it was. Nice goal on Marty Brodeur. Wins the Stanley Cup there. And so, yeah, Nicholas Wallin. Now, the guy I really did not want to put in this draft. Injured Seabrook and Hossa pretty badly. Taken 5th overall by the Islanders. Taken 26th overall by Washington, who was originally Brian Sotheby. Rafi Torres actually didn't have the most suspensions that early in his career. He only started getting his suspensions as he moved into the 2010s, when the game became safer. He was actually putting up decent numbers with the Oilers in that 2006 run to the final. He was scoring some big goals there. And I forgot to put the asterisks. Of course, his career basically ended by suspensions because he got suspended so much, especially trying to kill... Who did he try to kill? Troy Terry it was, when he with the headshot there. Hossa and Seabrook. I don't know how he wasn't suspended for the Seabrook one. Hossa, he got suspended for. A couple more suspensions in there that I'm forgetting about. I'm starting to stutter. But Rafi Torres, for the points he put up in the NHL, I feel like this is where he belongs. Tough guy, fighter, similar to Steve Ott, agitating, but with a bit more physical presence. Now chosen 76th overall by the Devils. The Devils had the most players in this redraft with 3. You had Engeland, you had, who was early on? You had Paul Martin, and so that's 2 defensemen, and now you have a forward. A guy that's consistently on NHL Network these days. Mike Rupp. Quite literally won Game 7 for the New Jersey Devils in the 2003 Stanley Cup Final over the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. But Mike Rupp was a tough guy, not known for his goal scoring, but his clutch performances in that Game 7 basically kind of made him a piece of this first round. And I don't really have much else to say about him. He was a big guy, he fought, and now he's on NHL Network as an analyst, so good for him. He was taken 76th overall by the Devils. Originally, Boston took Martin Samuelsson. Yeah, you can tell there's a lot of players in this first round that aren't there, but there are also a lot that are still here. Yeah, at this point, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And still in here you have, 12. 12 is the final count because these next 3 aren't first rounders. Now, going the farthest in this draft that a guy was taken, 28th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers chose Justin Williams. He's off the board. Going 224th overall to the Dallas Stars. A guy I hadn't heard of in a long time, and I honestly forgot how good he was, but he wasn't as good as I remember. I just forgot a T in his name. Antti Miettinen. So yes, Miettinen gets in at 28. Sorry about that again, guys. Going to Philadelphia instead, he was a good bottom 6 two-way forward with the Dallas Stars in his time. Didn't spend a long time in the NHL though. Now going 29th overall, a guy that was drafted in 2000, didn't make his debut until much later, was a healthy scratch during his debut a lot, and he was kind of out of the NHL by around 2013. But he won 2 Stanley Cups. My grandmother's favorite player, Thomas Kopecky. The reason why is stupid. I'm not even going to bring it up. She just liked the way his name sounded. I don't know why I just said it that way. But Thomas Kopecky, taken 38th overall by the Detroit Red Wings. He gets in at 29. Originally, Detroit took Nicholas Cronwall. They still end up with the guy they chose. So, funny enough, that's how things work. And last but not least, taken 54th overall by the Nashville Predators. You have a guy that I really don't remember, but the name sounds familiar. Matt Hendricks would be taken by the Predators 54th overall. I assume a bottom forward, and I realize my screen just froze, so I'm going to hurry this up. St. Louis just took Jeff Tafe. I'm not redoing this video. St. Louis took Jeff Tafe 30th overall. Don't remember him whatsoever. Honorable mentions, Radislav Kleshia, who went 4th overall to Columbus, Darcy Horachuk, who went number 180 to the Thrashers, Andreas Lilia, who went number 54 to the Kings, and Rick DiPietro, who went number 1 to the New York Islanders. I'm going to call the video here because my screen's frozen. You can't really see anything. I'm not writing anything. You see what's on the board here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way through, leave your thoughts down below in the order you would have redrafted these guys in. Sorry about the delay in videos. Hopefully the camera's is not gonna bug out anymore, but you can only hope. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I shall see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.